Hello, everybody. My name is Timothy Gager, and welcome to Virtual Fridays Dire Literary Series. And tonight, my guest is my good friend and fellow writer, and He produces a lot of books, and we'll talk about a lot of that very, very soon. But let me introduce you to Rusty, and that's hilarious what I just did. There we are. Okay, never mind. I was just bragging about how I had the screen share all set up to do this, and then when I did it, it was gone. So here it is. So Rusty Barnes is the 2018 Derringer finalist and author of the short story collections Breaking It Down, Sunny Outside Press, and Mostly Redneck, as well as 4 novels, Reckoning, Ridge Runner, Honey Down and Out Books, Knuckle Dragger, and the last, Danger. He's also written many poetry books and crime novels and crime short stories books. Tough comes to mind as a remarkable book. And has a book that came out in 2020, and it's the Dear So-and-so poems, which I know that Rusty has been writing for poems, Dear So-and-so poems for years and years. It's nice to see it. There it is. It's being held up. It's nice to see it on screen here. So without anything else, let's go turn it over to Rusty. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you. This is my library. This is my favorite room in the house from which to do readings. So let me just talk for a little bit about Dear So-and-so. I thought when I wrote the first one around 2003 that I was addressing people in my life who were causing me headaches. And I realized soon after that I was writing to basically anyone who'd ever pissed me off or had threatened my not threatened my livelihood, but threatened my way of looking at myself. Lovers, girlfriends, tax collectors, people like that. So the subject, it goes all over the place. There's a little sex, there's a little romance, there's hopefully a sense of humor. So I'm just going to go ahead and start reading right from the first poem in the book. Marriage for all ages. Dear So-and-so, that night I brought you to completion with a technique I called the Force 5 forklift flip. You cawed like a chicken. I thought you'd marry me, but 2 days later you sacked me as your boyfriend because I didn't like sex. On a night when things like that happen, my sordid imagination kicks into overtime. I'm free. Oh no, who is she with now? What are they doing? Oh God. Thanks be to he who does not exist. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed be. I feel free to revel now in my particular maleness, to drive, to scratch my tender parts, have a beer, and then another, to catch the light as it bends around a fence post, the amber-eye quickness as a deer jumps. My head bottoming on the windshield like a coffee mug, deer still kicking spasms next to me in the cab. Somewhere in the night, a statey mashes a donut into his 6-cup of joe, heaves himself up to answer the radio, unaware or uncaring of my domestic drama. He drives 40 miles to find me, by which time I've tossed my beer cans ditch-bound and begun the lament of man unkind forever. Wassel me, baby, please. Let your breasts hang from your shirt when you bail me. Smother me with the great guns of love, and I'll marry you. This one's called Blood Prayer. Dear So-and-so, breath is to touch as fist is to hit. What I mean is not so clear to explain. Take a long piece of string tied to an index finger. Attach it to your careful heart, all ventricle and valve and thump. Watch as tremors shake the string, runnels of blood worrying down the thread to the finger's tip and on to cup in the palm of the hand, where the red gently blown aside reveals the headline and heartline in the simian crease. Say it with me. Oh, please, pray, oh, blood and breath. This is a poem I wrote with the English restoration writers, and I tried to get something that would make sense to them, and it turned into something I'm not even sure what to say about it other than it's a love poem. It's called Vegetable Love. Dear so and so, now wholesale prices, my love might be worth $5 and a fat cracker. Stop teasing. Break down the ways I refuse to become a reasonably rational adult. When the great when the great cloud-bound arbiter rips up our contracts and separates our mutual needs, what will yours say? I needed him like rocks need to be smelted into ore. I needed love. What you got, I'll admit, was less like that and more like a matter of give and no take. 40 million years in purgatory for the sin of saying the unsayable. I'll settle this. We loved body to body like leaves, the wind always waving us goodbye or hello. Yes, hello. Yes, love. Yes. This next one is called Insomniac Toothache. Easiest thing to say about this is that I was having a long night of the soul. This one's fairly new. This is like 2018 or 19, and I had a toothache and I was hallucinating at the same time, and not one because of the other, but I was trying my best to be there for the people around me, and some people I was not around for at that time, such as my father. But anyway, it's enough explanation. Insomniac Toothache. Dear so-and-so, there's a tick of light underneath your lids where love refuses to live. Outside, the guns call from the closet. I think they sing for me. Streetlights call for blackout. The devil lisps when he talks. Forward thinkers, air travelers carry Benadryl. Under the street is a tomb. Oh yes, I have a diagnosis. It's called being alive. Just a couple more. This is called The Man Whines to the Wife, a sonnet of the daytime tube. Dear so-and-so, why does your mother pick on the Price is Right? I've known since forever that she and I were compatible as diaper stench and cute baby, but every day I sit on the couch, wrapped in my unemployment and my cheap regrets, only to hear her assault the screen with such invective when someone chooses badly. In my bitter heart, I know we've all chosen poorly. When I fought in the desert so long ago, I never dreamed to come to arguing about the tube. Oh, Janice Pennington, in my childhood dreams, you made a green bikini vision as you gestured toward a full fridge, your outstretched and tender arm, the subtle flow of sweet salve from my horn dog heart. Save me, Janice, please. I don't want to end on too heavy a note, so this is one just called Love/Poem. Dear so-and-so, I love your dark mind, the garden in your thoughts where snapdragons bloom hard at the crest of the cerebral cortex. Curve your hand around the dirty trowel. Dig in the soft ground for the ends of worms, stones, and offal, thick clot of root and germ. The soil rich, black like a turd in your hand. Force it like clay between your fingers. It's no longer a fine and private place you have. I've written it all out now here. They all know you're mine now, what it looks like in there, how you act, what it means for this verse of mine. There's a beat before a poem dies. Listen hard and you'll notice it. Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rusty. Wow, great stuff. And I think you had the book up there. You can still see you, but we could also see the blurbs on the back of the book. I thought that was really kind of cool.
Does it show up backwards?
No, it showed up. Well, to me, I don't know when it gets released later. No, it's very forward. There it is. Very cool.
Wow.
So we got a question in chat, and people are encouraged to do that. And Rusty, you don't need to read the chat, so I will get to it too. Here's one from Lisa. It says, when writing a chapbook, how do you decide what order to put the poems in? Are they chronological, printed in the order that you wrote them, or is there a framework you create to tell a story or lead the reader to a specific journey?
Well, honestly, the way I do things is I write 3 poems that maybe do one thing or another, and then two more that do something else. I try to have a sense of humor about the thing. It's not always evident, but every three poems that are heavy, one or two poems that are light, and that's pretty much just a matter of how I feel when I'm organizing it. There's no hidden order or hidden meaning to the order or anything like that. It's really kind of random.
So why three and then two upbeat ones, maybe humorous ones? If you didn't have that particular framework, would you end up with five of something else?
Yeah, I would. I'd end up with five depressing ones. It's very hard for me to be funny, but I try. Tongue in cheek a lot of these poems. So I just like to vary it.
Well, in terms of the way things turn out, you write in a lot of different genres. You write poetry, you've written traditional short stories, you've written flash fiction, you've written crime stories, you've written crime novels, you've written poetry. Is there a different mindset that you need to get to write any particular genre, or any given day you can do anything?
It really depends on the day. I actually in September I did a benefit for oh boy, striking. Can't remember. I did a benefit for 30 days. You write a poem a day and post it to their site. God, that's bothering me that I can't remember that now.
Tupelo?
What's that?
Tupelo?
Tupelo. Thank you. Yeah, Tupelo Press, Jeffrey Levine. And I actually started having some mental health issues towards the end of it, so I kind of had to bag it. But I got 25 poems out of it. And back in the day, Tim, when you and I were in Scrawl together, and Lisa, there were points I was writing 2 or 3 poems or two or three pieces of flash fiction a week, which is why it says in my bio I've published more than 200 poems and stories. A lot of those happened between 2002 and 2008, which is sort of the heyday of the online community. It's a lot different now. Groups are splintered. We have Facebook and Twitter and things like that, which keep us close, but not nearly as close as getting to know people in like a situation where you're 1-on-3 or 1-on-5 at any given time. So I really kind of miss those days. I try to use Facebook and Twitter as a harkening back to that, but they're both so large. It's hard to feel that sense of connection.
Now, you talked about writing 30 poems in 30 days, and I know there's also write a novel in 30 days. There's that. Is there a real value to that, and what do you get out of it?
I think anything that gets you writing on the page is good. I've done it. I failed at NaNoWriMo probably 4 or 5 times, and when I finally took the pressure off myself to finish, I wrote. I finished a novel. It took me till I was 40, to learn the discipline to write a novel, but eventually I did it. But what was the question again? I think I went off on a ramble.
No, that was, you answered it very, very precisely. It was about the value of 30 and 30. So how many books do you have published now at this point, Rusty?
Dear So-and-so is my 15th, counting all my chapbooks.
And before that, you had started Night Train magazine, and you were very known for that. But as some of the best things in the literary world cannot survive. So tell us briefly the pluses of running a literary magazine and some of the minuses.
Well, the pluses are the people that you meet in the work you have. I mean, I run once, I would say, serious publication, which is tough, which is crime stories and occasional reviews when I can get people to write reviews for me. And Live Nude Poems, which is a site I run with my wife. We publish poetry. And then there's my personal blog, Fried Chicken and Coffee, which publishes fiction, poetry, and ephemera of the rural life, rural noir, Appalachian working class concerns. Fried Chicken and Coffee sort of bridges my career going to back when I was writing mostly literary stories back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And that sort of brings that interest of mine up to date. And that's still a good 3/4 of what I do is rural noir myself. Not that I publish, but things that I write myself is I would call rural, or God forbid, rural noir, because noir is so hard to define. But anyway, that gives you a good idea of where I come from. And I do it because it keeps me honest. It's always good to read what other people are writing in the same genres you're working at. So, and you make friends. You and I met this way, Tim. Lisa, that's how we met. I mean, and the others of you, Gene, is that you I see down there at the bottom? Thank you for coming. Thank you, all of you, for coming, actually. And, this is the way we make friends and influence people. And I love it.
Yeah, so you talked about, you started out, you worked in very traditional literary genre of the short story, and you studied and you got your MFA in that way. And then you went to the Appalachian North, to crime, and through poetry. Tell me a little bit about that journey. I'm particularly interested about the journey from your initial beginnings with very literary short stories, and why you decided to jump away from that.
Well, I did a dumb thing. I went to graduate school in creative writing, having only written 2 stories, one of which was my writing sample to get in. And then once I got in, I realized that I was in way over my head in terms of, what my peers were writing and what I was writing. I was sort of doing a slavish Ray Bradbury, I'm trying to think now, Greg Bear, Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle, sort of science fiction fantasy, which, if you know anything about MFA programs, is generally not looked upon as a positive thing. It certainly wasn't in the early 90s. So I spent a good 7 or 8 years reading myself up on those subjects. And then as I got older, it was taking me a while to buckle down and finish up a novel. And when I did, Reckoning came out in 2014, and a couple of people, it got a lot of press for a small book and sold pretty well. But one of the things it did was put me in contact with people in the crime community who said, "Why are you marketing this as literary? You could sell a ton more if you would, it's rural noir, it's crime fiction." And I started thinking about it, and basically all the fiction I had written had a crime in it at some point. And I sort of grew up not with a lot of crime in my family or in my sort of, crime was always once removed. There was a lot of jacklighting deer. There was a lot of sort of insurance fraud, things like that you don't think of as crime, that I witnessed when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, that's just how this goes. Okay. And that's what I ended up writing about. And the novel from 2014, Reckoning, started off the novel with a 15-year-old kid getting shot at when he discovers a not so friendly guy having sex in his barnyard, in his field. And it's not a literary story by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't know why I thought it would be at that. So I said to myself, okay, you're a crime writer, maybe. Let's try this. And then bang, 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 I wrote 3 novels in the space of a year and a half. And 2 of those have never been published and probably will never be. And I've written another 3 or 4 since that have sort of continued on the crime fiction. I write crime fiction. I call myself a crime fiction writer, but what I am most consistently is a poet, because usually if I can't get something going prose wise, I can rip off a poem in an hour or so, then throw it in a folder and let it sit for a while, come back to it in a week, 2 weeks, sometimes longer, and put those together in a collection. I tend to write as sort of compensation for not being able to write fiction, 40 hours a week, which is what I would prefer.
Your latest book of poetry, Dear So and So, which you introduced to us before you read from it. When did you write your first Dear So and So poem? And
It
who was
was
it to?
the first one I wrote was well, I don't know why you chose that one first, because that's the only one that's got a real story behind it. Well, the first Dear So and So came out when I was flushed with a sense of, I wrote it for an old girlfriend. I've been, you got to understand, I've been married for 34 years. So I was stretching for things to write about. And I thought, remember when so-and-so did this? That kind of sucked. So I sort of put myself back in that position and wrote a Dear So-and-so. And there you go. I've written them. Some of them were written to my father. Some of them were written to people who assumed one thing of me and got quite another. A lot of editors and writers have said to me, based on my online persona, which I've had, since there was internet, I've been on it. And people look at me with the long hair and the beard. They expect a growly sort of cigarette throat when I read, which is, of course, as you all can hear, is nothing like that. I don't fit any sense or prejudice that people generally bring to me. Tony Maltezos did an interview with me, oh Lord, 6 or 7 years ago now, and his headline was Rusty Barnes, a big, gentle-hearted bear of a man. And I was like, okay, Tony, I guess I can see that. But my wife always teases me when I'm getting, sort of too big for my britches. She's like, oh yeah, but gentle, big, or open-hearted bear of a man. Yeah, sure. So gives you a little bit of insight into my relationship.
Well, you're talking about how active you were on social media, but you're very open about your health and specifically your mental health in social media. Do you find that being open about it helps you in general or not? And does it help your writing to be that open?
Well, it helps me to be that open, to have people know that there are times I'm not going to be able to respond. Like my last stretch in the hospital was in March of this year, and it was the third one this year. It's the worst year I've ever had, mental illness wise. And I have discovered that it's freeing for me to post something like this to Facebook or to Twitter and go, look, guys, I need a hand. I need good thoughts because I'm not going to be able to get through this on my own. And luckily, I have been blessed with a number of people who I've gotten to know over the years, and close friends of mine, who will message me to say, it's all right, you're okay. Lisa, God bless her, sent me a worry stone, that I keep close to my computer. I don't hide it. I'm in a good spot right now, and that's about all I can say about it.
Well, thank you for that answer. It's not easy to talk about, especially, but I think in society now it's easier to talk about it. But there's all kinds of things. Actually, that's not a question. I'm going to go off on my own opinion, and I'll talk about it when we sign off. You're a ferocious reader, Rusty. How many books do you say you read a month, and how many books are in your library? Do you ever have to cycle some of them out?
I do. I have. I cycled out 26 cases most recently, and they're up in the attic, making me fret about what to do with them. Behind me and around me, though, you can see those books are all double stacked on shelves. So much so, the fact we had a siding repair on our house during one of the storms we've had recently. And the floor in the library where I am right now had always had a little bit of give to it. I didn't think anything of it. It's an older house, but they ripped off the siding and kicked in some of the wall. And it turns out that the weight of all these books had pushed the floor down about 4.5 inches. So they were taking they were taking off siding and looking into my cellar. And of course, I didn't have any idea. I don't spend all my time in the library, just my fun time. So I didn't really think about it. I thought it's an old house, it's fine. But then the repairman said, "Sir, you got to take a look at this." So we actually had to build up the left side of my house at a fairly expensive rate to make sure that my books weren't going to fall through the floor into the cellar. So all told, I have around 10,000, probably closer to 12,000 books now.
So 12,000 books.
Yeah, I actually I went from, I had around 10,000 again. A friend of mine who's sadly no longer with us, Mike Sposito, who was on
Yes.
Scrawl, used to challenge me to find a book he hadn't read. He would call me on the phone and say, "What's that book to your right? Is it this?" And he would name some, really high level, literary novel. Like he introduced me to Elsa Morante, who wrote a book called La Storia in Italian, or history. And I bought it on Mike's suggestion, and I looked at it and I was like, "This is not me, man. I am not a heavy duty thinker that this takes." So it's still in my collection, but it's packed into the 26 cases that I have upstairs that I need to sadly donate or sell or something. I mean, it's a great collection.
Now, when you went through your books, did you notice that you bought a few of them more than once without realizing it?
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely.
And
my memory's pretty good, but not perfect.
Barbara wants to know, do you ever let people visit your house and just to browse through your books?
No, because I'm always afraid they'll steal it. Because I got a lot of stuff here. Books, I tell my wife, are my only visible vice. I'm very partial to them.
So over your shoulder, I see this book that has a white and yellow on top of its binding. It looks like the same book. Is that possible?
Oh, no, those are Hemingway's over my shoulder. You're looking at my two shelves of Hemingway, and those books you're looking at are his collected letters, the first 3 volumes. He was an incredibly prolific letter writer, even in his younger days, before he had any status at all. He was writing people 3 and 4 letters a day. And as you get later in his career, the part where he lives in Cuba, so the early 30s, before he goes over for the Spanish Civil War, he's writing 5 and 6 and 7 letters a day, most of them while he was drunk. So there's a lot of braggadocio and misogynistic, anti-Semitic.
Wow.
It's incredible to read, because the public persona of Hemingway has been so heavily curated since his life, when he was one of the most famous men in the world. And it's really sort of I love Hemingway. I mean, I have 2 cases of books either by Hemingway or about Hemingway. And I look, how should I put this? I admire the hell out of him, but regret the first time I read him, because I didn't have any idea. I read The Old Man and the Sea back in college, and back in high school, excuse me, and I never had any hint of this. He was just presented as this lofty writer whose vices were maybe very visible, but people just don't talk about them.
So you say you've got 2 shelves of Hemingway and your own legacy. Would you want, or would you think, or would you hope that somewhere in some place in time, someone might have 2 shelves of your work?
No, that'll never happen.
Lisa raising her head. Lisa has 2 shelves of your work. So there you have it.
Thank you.
So Rusty, we're going to wrap things up right now. It's a wonderful interview, and I love talking literature and work, and your work
I love
especially.
it too.
And
My friends, Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who's come. Because of my various mental problems, mental health problems, and my general reclusive nature, I would just like to say these are me. That what we're doing here is giving me a break from being in my brain, and I really appreciate you coming, and I really appreciate you listening to what I had to say. Okay, Tim, go ahead.
No, thank you. That sums it up. So folks, if you're interested in Rusty's work, you don't have to get it on Amazon, except this is a very easy way for me to find everything and flip through. There is Dear So-and-so right in the middle of the page, and you can see some of it, Knuckle Dragger, a novel, and Jesus in the Ghost Room. There's all kinds of On Broad Sound, a book of poetry. Tough is crime short stories. So definitely look for them. And go to your favorite indie bookstore as well and ask to order them. They all can be ordered. And if you order them now, people can have them for Christmas. So once again, Rusty, thank you so much. And people that are
streaming, all of you very much.
People that are streaming and watching this on Facebook, I'm going to cut off the stream now. If you'd like to attend the open mic or read at the open mic, use the Zoom link that's posted in the Virtual Fridays group. So I'm going to say thank you as well to you, and I'll see you next week.